Hello and welcome back everyone. It's just boring old me, of course. It's Daisy. Yay, I hear you say. Thank you. This week I'm going to talk to you about a very important subject on everybody's lips. Quite literally in some cases. But I'm going to be a bit naughty and cheeky, and I'm not going to tell you what it is straight away. Instead, I'm going to see if you can try and guess. And I've got you some clues. So here's my first clue. We are doing it right now. I am doing it right now by watching it. No guesses? Okay, well, I've made you a riddle. And if you listen very carefully, you might pick up some clues to this riddle. Okay, here it is. You see me when you get a text. You hear me when the phone rings. You need me when you want to buy something. I can be silent. I can also be loud. When you yell or fight or argue, that's me. In fact, whenever you feel the need to disagree, everybody needs and uses me. Even the deaf, the blind, and those who can't see. You don't even need to speak to use me. I'm on your Facebook and your Twitter feed. All media love me. Even politicians use me. What am I? No guesses, anybody? You all give up? Okay, I suppose I will tell you. You kind of forced it out of me. Well, it's communication, of course. A very, very tricky yet important subject, especially when it comes to people with autism. This week, I'm going to talk about the emotions and the communications side of this. So the empathy, the sympathy, the compassion, how sometimes empathy and sympathy merge. I'll be doing some myth busting as well. Next week I'll talk about, well, probably everything else, but about idioms and general speak and how people can take it quite literally if you're autistic. Okay, so enough chitter chatter, let's get down to business, not communicating on this subject. See what I did there? You see, you may think it comes naturally to people. I know that if you and T's see a person who is angry or concerned or upset, you know what those faces look like and you know what to do with them. But it's not for people who are on the spectrum. It's not that simple or easy. So I'm going to do some myth busting on the subject and break through some of the myths and misnomers and the wrong ideas about autism and communication, such as people with autism have no emotions, no sympathy, empathy, compassion. But it isn't that simple. For example, I have sympathy and empathy, but they just merge to make one big bubble of confusion. In a video, the Priory Clinic one, I talk about a book from Roald Dahl called The Giraffe Pelly and Me, which, by the way, if no one's read it, I suggest you do. It's such a beautiful, lovely book. It's got a lovely storyline, a happy ending, and best of all, it's short. In this book, I'll talk about how they have a sweet shop which has all the sweets and chocolates in the world, old and new ones too. And I say, imagine you're a kid and there was such thing as that sweet shop, and you love every kind of sweet and chocolate equally, and you can only have one of those. How the heck do you choose? And then I go on to explain that that's what it's like for me when sympathy and empathy merge. I mean, for example, one of the best examples I can give you is if someone said to me that they had a bad day. What the heck does that mean? What am I supposed to do with that? How am I supposed to respond to that? It's such a huge, general, wide range of things I could do. How am I supposed to respond? For example, they could have found out that they've got terminal cancer, or someone they love or know has terminal cancer, or been sacked, or been dumped, or cheated on, or had an affair, or filing for divorce, or being divorced themselves, or someone could have died. That'll cause for sort of hugs and going out and supporting them of a cup of tea, or maybe something a bit stronger, or, you know, a card or something. But there's also the kind of legal bad days, which could be something like they've been sued, or they're going to court, or they're making an official complaint, or maybe they've got an official complaint up against them, or they're selling their house, which kind of needs a practical response, like giving them the lawyer's number. And then there's the trivial bad days, like maybe a colleague is being a bit of a bitch at the moment, or they just wrote a really nice report that they're really proud of that day, and then gave it to their boss, and their boss came back and said, redo it, it's horrible. Or maybe they missed a train and got chewed out by their boss. Or maybe it's just a general run of bad luck, like the train and then they stubbed their toe. I mean, if I gave my number of my lawyer when they just stubbed their toe or someone died, that's just not the right way to respond, is it? If I just nodded and moaned when they had 10 months to live, or their dad just died, that would only just be not enough, but that might be inappropriate. So you kind of see my problem about what to do. So, okay, I have a solution to this. I ask filler questions which are sympathetic questions to find out more. It's kind of a bit like mimicking and masking. I ask them questions. I mean, obviously I do feel for them at this point. It's not that I'm faking it. But it's just a sympathetic way of finding out what the appropriate way to do it. It's like, oh no, that's so bad. What happened? Are you okay? Can I do anything? I sound interested and sympathetic while I'm finding out whether I need to give them some numbers to the divorce, or go to the doctor's appointment, or should I give them a cup of tea? And it's really useful, unless they don't like that and it's too private, or they don't want to tell you about it. Then not only are you stuck, you've probably upset them more into the bargain. The other thing to do in this situation, I found, is I work with what I've got. Now, no one's a mind reader, unless they're psychic, of course. And no one is so much as a bad reader as people who are autistic. So what do? I think to myself, hey Daisy, what would it be like for me? What would I think, do, say, etc. if I was in this situation? Which is fine if they're anything like me. But, I mean, otherwise you're a bit stuffed. I have a funny story in one of my gig videos, actually, about, I used to date a guy who lived in Kenya. And at the time, 2 months before Christmas, my stepfather left me, and my mum said I could go to Kenya for Christmas. Now, I've always been told, it's kind of been hammered into my head, that Christmas is a family time. But of course, our family kind of needed to be redefined. So I went, feeling nevertheless slightly guilty, because what was going through my mind was, I wouldn't want to be left alone in my house after my partner just left at a family time like Christmas. But she said it was okay, so I went, and she said she had plans. But those plans apparently went out the window with her health, and I found this out when I came back, and I felt guilty ever since. However, this is the punchline. My mum said that she was glad to have me out of the way and from underneath her feet, because she didn't have to worry about me. I still felt guilty about it though. So you can see it's a very rudimentary, flawed and simplistic way, and it doesn't work all the time. But I find it's better than nothing. I mean, you could say, I'm learning to be human. It's not as simple as we don't have the communication skills. It's just that we don't know how to read the body language, and that gets in the way of us understanding you. And then there's that little part about how to respond to it. I've got a rather good analogy. It's about a foster kitten I have. His name is Rupert, and he's so cute and fluffy and sweet and soft, and yeah, I should stop before I start ranting. You see, Rupert, he squeaks and mews at everything. He's hungry, he squeaks. He's bored, he squeaks. He's scared. You guessed it. He squeaks. And he kind of ends up like the child, or the kitten in this case, who cried wolf. I have no idea. I genuinely don't understand what he wants from me. And I'm not sure if even his mum, his cat mum, knows either, to be fair. Another good example about ASD and communication and sympathy and empathy and compassion is in this brilliant new Netflix series called Atypical. If you want to watch it, and I suggest you really should, I suggest you skip it ahead because I'm about to give you a major spoiler alert. So in the Netflix series Atypical, there's this autistic girl who steals a art portfolio book from another autistic boy who expressed in the group they met up in that it was so much hard work and so stressful to do with his coursework, and she thought that stealing it would help him remove that stress when it actually caused more stress. Next. Oh God, I think I'm running out of time, guys. As predicted, I talked so much about this subject. In the meantime, let's communicate down in the comment, and I'll communicate on the communication of communicating. Communicate your love of this video by subscribing and sharing. And I'll communicate with you next week. Bye!